Commander Elias Ward had never imagined that his final mission would end like this. His ship, the Nighthawk, had been in pursuit of the notorious pirate ship Shadow's Fangs, which had stolen a powerful new weapon from the United Earth Fleet. The chase through the asteroid field had been close, but the pirate vessel had finally slipped away into a nearby uncharted system. And that's when it happened. A sudden, violent burst of energy from the pirate's weapon struck Elias's ship, causing an explosion that sent the Nighthawk spiraling out of control. The control systems went dark. Elias's body was thrown against the harness and his head slammed into the console. Pain, confusion, and then blackness. He woke up to the smell of burned metal and a low hum of power still running through his craft. The emergency alarms were silent, and the stars outside the viewport were spinning in chaotic patterns as the Nighthawk drifted through space. Elias quickly checked his systems. The crash had left him stranded on an unknown moon, a small, rocky world orbiting a gas giant. He tried to raise a distress signal, but the damage was severe. No response. Great, Elias muttered to himself, gripping the pilot seat. Just what I needed. The last thing he remembered was the pirate ship disappearing into the unknown. But now, his main priority was survival. He had to find a way off this moon, repair the Nighthawk, and get back to Earth before the pirates regrouped. With a deep sigh, Elias unstrapped himself and climbed into the cockpit's escape pod. The ship's hull groaned as if it was about to fall apart, but Elias's focus remained sharp. He pushed the escape pod's launch button, and in seconds, he was drifting away from the wreckage, heading toward the surface of the moon. As he descended, he could see strange ruins rising from the barren landscape. It was like something out of an old myth, ancient stone structures that seemed too perfect, too orderly, to belong to nature. He landed the escape pod a few hundred meters from the ruins, his heart racing with curiosity. There was a small entrance that led into a dome-like structure, shaped like an old, forgotten temple. The closer he got, the more he felt the pulse of something powerful beneath the surface of the moon. Elias's instincts kicked in, and he took his sidearm, checking the charge. The ruins looked like they had been abandoned for centuries, but something in his gut told him he was not alone. He approached the dome cautiously, but before he could reach the entrance, a strange noise filled the air. It sounded like humming, soft at first, then growing louder. Elias paused, scanning the area, but saw nothing out of the ordinary. The moon's surface was quiet, desolate, but then, from inside the dome, a soft light began to shine through cracks in the stone. Elias's heart skipped a beat. Curious, he stepped closer to the entrance, and that's when he saw her. A woman. She was standing in a pool of what looked like glowing liquid, the light radiating off her skin in waves. She appeared almost ethereal, her long hair flowing like liquid silver. Her posture was graceful, as if she had no care in the world. The soft hum from before seemed to be emanating from her, as if she were part of the very air. Elias froze. His mind raced, trying to make sense of the situation. She was humanoid, yes, but there was something about her that felt different. Her presence felt almost otherworldly. Without thinking, Elias instinctively turned his head, his face flushing in embarrassment. He hadn't meant to stare, but he had. He had been so distracted by the strange beauty of the scene that it took him a moment to realize he had crossed a line. "Sorry," Elias muttered under his breath, his back now to her. But to his surprise, the woman didn't seem offended. Instead, she let out a soft laugh, a sound like a gentle breeze, and then, with a voice that sounded like music, she spoke. "You don't need to turn away," she said, her voice calm and inviting. "You're not the first to see me like this." Elias turned back slowly, confusion written across his face. Who are you?" The woman smiled, her eyes locking with his. "My name is Caliph," she said, "and you're Elias Ward, commander of the Nighthawk, correct?" Elias's mouth went dry. He hadn't told anyone his name since the crash. "How do you know that?" he asked, his hand instinctively moving to his sidearm. Kayleith didn't flinch. She simply smiled, a knowing, almost sad expression on her face. "It's complicated, but I've been waiting for you." Elias couldn't make sense of her words. How could she know his name? Why was she here? And what was this place? As if reading his thoughts, Kayleith spoke again. "This is not an ordinary place, Elias. I am not an ordinary being. But you've come here, and now the story of your people and mine will merge." Elias stared at her, unsure of what to think. Was this some sort of trap? Or was something even stranger unfolding? But before he could ask another question, Kayleith stepped forward, her smile widening. "I'm not here to harm you. I'm here to help." And just like that, Elias's confusion deepened. What had he gotten himself into? Elias still stood there, trying to process the situation. The woman, Kayleith, was unlike anything he had ever encountered. She wasn't human, at least not in the way he understood it. Her presence was calming, almost otherworldly. Yet there was something familiar about her eyes, something that made him feel like he had seen her before, in dreams or distant memories. "How do you know my name?" Elias asked again, his voice steady but filled with curiosity. Kayleith's smile softened. She tilted her head slightly as if considering his question before responding. "The same way the stars know your name," she said, her voice gentle, but deep. "I've been waiting for someone like you for a very long time." Elias frowned, his brow furrowing in confusion. "Waiting for me? What do you mean? I've never seen you before in my life." Kayleith nodded, understanding his doubt. She stepped closer, her movements graceful as if she were walking through water. The air around them seemed to shimmer with the soft glow of the dome's lights. "I understand that this is a lot to take in," she said, "but let me explain." She motioned for him to follow her as she walked toward a large stone slab in the center of the dome. Elias hesitated for a moment, but then followed her. The dome was unlike any structure he had seen before. The walls were made of smooth, dark stone, with strange symbols carved into them. It looked ancient, as if it had been abandoned for centuries. Yet the place felt alive, as if it was aware of their presence. When they reached the stone slab, Kayleith placed her hand on it. The symbols on the walls flickered, glowing faintly. She looked back at Elias. "This is the heart of the singularity," she said softly. "It's the source of my existence, and yours too, in a way." Elias stared at her, trying to make sense of her words. "The singularity? What's that? I've never heard of it." Kayleith closed her eyes for a moment as if searching for the right words. "The singularity is a civilization that existed long before humanity ever walked the earth. It was a network of minds, of beings, connected across vast stretches of space and time. We, the singularity, left behind legacies, seeds of our knowledge on many worlds, including yours." Elias's eyes widened. "Wait, are you saying that humans are connected to you? That we're part of this singularity?" Kayleith nodded, her eyes glowing with an inner light. "Yes, exactly. Humans were always meant to be part of the singularity. You are not an accident. You are the culmination of a long journey that began long before your kind even knew how to speak." Elias took a step back, his mind racing. "So, you're telling me that humans were chosen to be part of something bigger? That we were created by an ancient civilization?" Kayleith's expression softened. "Not created. Guided." She paused. "There are many secrets hidden in the universe, Elias. Your people were sent out into the stars as part of a greater plan. But something happened. Something went wrong. The singularity vanished. We were left behind, stranded in a Waiting for the right time. Elias couldn't wrap his mind around it. And I'm supposed to believe all of this? It sounds like a fairy tale. Kalith smiled, as if she understood his skepticism. I know it's difficult to believe, but everything in this dome, everything I know, is proof that what I say is true. This place is a relic of the singularity. It has been here, hidden, waiting for someone who could understand. Elias crossed his arms, still uncertain. So, what does all of this have to do with me? Why was I the one who crashed here? Kalith's eyes softened and she stepped closer to him. You are the key, Elias. You are the one who can unlock the future of your people. Elias blinked, trying to understand. Unlock the future? I'm just a pilot. I don't even know what's going on half the time. She shook her head. That's where you're wrong. You may not realize it, but your journey, your very existence, is part of something much larger. You are the descendant of those who were meant to lead, to guide humanity toward something greater. You've been tested, and you passed. Elias felt a shiver run down his spine. Tested? Kalith's gaze grew serious. When your ancestors first reached out into the stars, they were given a choice. They could either continue their path toward peace, understanding, and exploration, or fall into conflict, greed, and destruction. The choice was meant to be yours. It was always meant to be humanity's choice. Elias stood still, trying to process her words. And now, I'm supposed to decide the fate of the entire human race. Kalith nodded. Yes, and I will help you. But first, you need to understand something important. She gestured to the glowing walls of the dome. This place, this energy, it's all connected to you. It's not just a relic, it's a living being, and it's waiting for the right person to awaken it. Elias swallowed hard. And you think that's me? I know it is, Kalith said, her voice filled with certainty. And I've been waiting for you. For a long moment, Elias remained silent, the weight of her words pressing down on him. He didn't know what to believe, but one thing was clear. Everything he thought he knew about humanity, about the universe, was about to change. Kalith looked at him with something akin to hope in her eyes. The universe is much bigger than you know, Elias, and humanity is not just a single world among the stars. You are the beginning of something extraordinary. Elias wasn't sure what it all meant, but one thing was certain. His life had just taken a turn he couldn't have prepared for. The days that followed were strange for Elias. It felt as though time itself had slowed down, stretching into long hours filled with questions, confusion, and discovery. Kalith was patient with him, explaining things bit by bit, but even her calm presence couldn't help him fully understand what she was telling him. Elias spent most of his time inside the dome, walking alongside Kalith as she showed him the ancient technology that lay hidden beneath the surface. The walls glowed with symbols, their meanings slowly becoming clearer the more he looked at them. It was like the stone itself was alive, its patterns shifting and changing as if reacting to his presence. Kalith had told him that this place, the dome, was the heart of the singularity, and that everything in it was connected to the ancient civilization. But it was hard for Elias to imagine such a thing. How could a civilization so advanced just disappear, leaving only ruins behind? And why was he, a simple pilot, so important to its return? As he sat at a table in one of the chambers, Kalith handed him a small stone tablet. The symbols on it were unlike anything he had seen before, intricate, flowing lines that seemed to dance across the surface. Elias took the tablet, holding it carefully in his hands. The moment his fingers brushed against the stone, the symbols glowed faintly and a soft hum filled the air. This is one of the last messages of the singularity, Kalith explained. It's a record of the decision humanity must make, the choice that will determine your future. Elias turned the tablet over, trying to make sense of the symbols. "So, this is a prophecy?" he asked, not sure if that was the right word. Kalith shook her head. "Not exactly. It's a warning. A message left by those who came before you, a way for humanity to understand the path it must take." Elias looked at her, his brow furrowed. "What kind of warning?" "The singularity was not just a network of minds, Elias," she said. "It was a collective effort to preserve knowledge, peace, and understanding. But there were those who wanted to use that knowledge for control, for power. The singularity was meant to guide humanity, not control it. The choice your people face now is whether to continue the path of peace or to fall into the same traps of greed and war that many civilizations before you have." Elias leaned back, trying to process her words. He had always thought of humanity as strong, capable of greatness, but also prone to conflict and mistakes. Was this really the moment where everything could change? He looked down at the tablet. Again. The symbols were starting to make more sense, though they were still confusing. He traced his fingers along the lines, and suddenly the symbols shifted, revealing something new. A message appeared in a language he could understand, as if the stone itself was speaking directly to him. "When the last child of Earth returns, the gate will open." Elias's heart raced as he read the words aloud. What does this mean? The gate? The child of Earth? Kalith's expression grew serious, her eyes locking with his. "The child of Earth is you, Elias. You are the one who will open the gate. The gate is not a physical door, but a connection, an access point to the knowledge of the singularity. It's a place where humanity will find the answers it needs to step into a new age." Elias felt a chill run down his spine. "So, I'm supposed to lead humanity into this new age? But I'm just one person. I don't even know where to start." Kalith placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You're not alone, Elias. You never have been. The singularity is still here, in the knowledge that has been passed down to you. The choice is yours, but it's not one you have to make alone. You have the support of your people and the wisdom of those who have come before." Elias felt the weight of her words settle in his chest. The responsibility was enormous. It wasn't just about surviving the crash or escaping this moon. It was about something much bigger, a future for humanity, one that would change the course of history. But how could he possibly make such a choice? As the days passed, Kalith continued to help him understand more about the singularity. She showed him ancient records, vast databanks stored in the dome's walls, filled with knowledge about the universe, technology, and history. Every time Elias thought he understood a piece of it, something new would come to light. An even deeper mystery, a more complex puzzle. Despite all the information, one question lingered in his mind. Why me? One evening, as they sat outside the dome, watching the stars above, Elias finally voiced his thoughts. Why did the singularity choose humanity? Why not another species? Why are we so special? Kalith gazed up at the stars, her expression thoughtful. "Humanity is unique, Elias. You are a species that has the capacity for both great destruction and incredible growth. It's not about being perfect, it's about the potential to learn from mistakes, to change, and to evolve. That's what the singularity saw in you. That's why you were chosen." Elias looked at her, his mind racing. "But how do I even know we're ready for this? How do I know that we won't repeat the mistakes of the past?" Kalith turned to him, her eyes filled with kindness. "You can't know for certain, but you can choose to try. That's all anyone can do. You don't have to have all the answers, Elias. You just have to be willing to ask the right questions, and to lead with the heart of humanity." Elias nodded slowly, the weight of her words sinking in. It wasn't about being perfect, it was about trying, about giving humanity the chance to choose a better path, to rise above the mistakes of the past. But the decision was his, and it would be the hardest choice he'd ever have to make. Elias had barely begun to understand the enormity of the situation when the pirates arrived. For days, he and Calith had been working together, deciphering more of the ancient technology and records within the dome. Each new discovery seemed to raise more questions than it answered. Despite the uncertainty swirling in his mind, Elias had started to feel a sense of purpose. The dome's energy resonated with him, as if the ancient civilization had been waiting for someone like him all along, but that purpose would be tested sooner than he could have imagined. The peaceful atmosphere of the dome shattered one evening when Elias, working at a terminal, picked up a strange signal. At first, it was faint, a ripple in the air, like a soft whisper over a vast distance. Then it grew stronger, a familiar frequency. The pirates. "Calith," Elias called, rushing to her side. She was meditating by the glowing pool in the center of the dome, her eyes closed in deep concentration. At the sound of his voice, she opened her eyes and stood up quickly. "What's wrong?" she asked, sensing the urgency in his tone. "The Shadow's fangs." "They're back," Elias said, his voice tight with worry. Calith's face shifted from calm to concern, though she didn't appear to be frightened. "The pirates?" Elias nodded. "They're tracking me. I must have sent out some kind of distress signal when I crashed, and now they've found the source." He shook his head, frustration building. "I didn't think they would follow me all the way here." Calith stepped forward, her expression unreadable. "They won't stop looking for you, Elias. They know that you found something important, something they want, and they will come for it, no matter the cost." Elias felt a chill run through him. And what happens if they get what they want? Calith's eyes flickered and she gave a small, sad smile. "They will destroy everything." Elias's heart skipped a beat. He wasn't just fighting for survival now. He was fighting for the future of humanity, and whatever secret the dome held. If the pirates reached it first, they could misuse the Singularity's power. They could tear the galaxy apart. "Then we need to stop them," Elias said, his voice firm. "No matter what it takes." Calith looked at him for a long moment, her eyes filled with a deep sadness. "You will have to make a choice, Elias. A choice that will change everything." Before Elias could respond, the warning systems inside the dome activated. The sound of a low, rumbling alarm echoed through the chambers. The pirates were closing in fast. "We don't have time," Elias said urgently. He grabbed his sidearm and checked its charge. "We need to get to the control room. I'll try to contact the fleet." But Calith stopped him with a gentle touch on his arm. "The control room is no longer in your control. The dome has its own defenses that have been dormant for centuries. But they will activate soon. The question is whether you're ready for them." Elias stared at her, unsure of what she meant. "What do you mean?" Calith didn't answer immediately. Instead, she turned toward the center of the dome, where the glowing energy pool shimmered. "The Singularity's core is reacting to the threat. You are the key to unlocking it. But once you activate it, there's no going back." Elias swallowed hard. "What do you mean, no going back?" Calith's face grew somber. "The power contained within the Singularity is immense. Once it awakens, it will begin to reshape this world, and potentially your future. If the pirates are here, it will take control of everything, and the power could fall into the wrong hands." Elias felt a knot tighten in his stomach. This was bigger than he had ever imagined. "So, you're saying that I have to fight them? Using this?" He gestured to the dome, still unsure of what he had unlocked inside it. Calith nodded. "Yes, the Singularity can protect itself, but it needs you to direct it. You must trust it, and trust yourself." Elias hesitated, his hand shaking slightly as he held his weapon. "I've never fought for something like this before. This isn't just about my life anymore. It's about everything. Kayleith took a step closer, her voice soft but steady. You're not alone, Elias. You never have been. The singularity will not let you fail. It has been waiting for someone like you. With no more time to waste, Elias set his jaw and nodded. He couldn't let fear hold him back now. The pirates were closing in, and they couldn't be allowed to win. He and Kayleith made their way to the central chamber of the dome, where the heart of the singularity pulsed with energy. It felt as though the entire structure was alive, vibrating with a deep, resonating hum. The entrance to the heart opened before them, and Elias stepped into the center of the glowing chamber. His heart pounded in his chest as he looked around. The air was thick with power. The walls of the dome seemed to breathe in and out, the symbols on the surface glowing brighter with each passing second. We're almost there, Kayleith said. The singularity is ready, Elias. You just need to make the call. Suddenly, the sound of ships echoing through the atmosphere reached their ears. The pirates had arrived. Their ships descended toward the surface, and Elias could see the outlines of their vessels through the dome's transparent ceiling. Without thinking, Elias raised his hand and pressed it against the center of the chamber. The singularity responded, the energy from the core swirling around him. It was as though he had become one with the very force that had shaped the universe. The dome's power began to surge, and a massive, protective shield began to form over the structure. The pirates had no idea what was coming for them. Elias turned to Kayleith, his eyes full of determination. Let's end this. The pirates had underestimated the power of the singularity. As their ships descended toward the moon's surface, they failed to notice the massive energy field that had surrounded the dome. The singularity's protective barrier was nearly invisible, but it was strong enough to halt any ships from approaching without permission. The moment the pirates tried to break through, the shields flared with bright light, sending a shockwave, rippling across the landscape. Elias could feel the energy in the air, like static electricity before a thunderstorm. The dome pulsed with power, and Elias, standing at the heart of it all, felt as though he were becoming part of the very force that was protecting them. They've triggered the defense systems, Kayleith said, her voice calm yet filled with a sense of urgency. She stood beside him, her eyes scanning the energy field around them. The singularity has awakened. They won't get past this barrier. Elias didn't reply. His mind was focused, his senses sharp. He knew that the pirates wouldn't give up easily. They were ruthless, determined, and they had the firepower to destroy anything that stood in their way. But now, it wasn't just his survival at stake. The future of humanity and the legacy of the singularity hung in the balance. Can we control it? Elias asked, turning to Kayleith. Can we make it do what we need? Kayleith nodded, her expression serious. We can. But it requires you to focus, Elias. The singularity responds to intention, to the heart of those who seek to unlock its power. You must be ready to guide it, not control it. Elias took a deep breath. His thoughts were a whirlwind of uncertainty. Could he really lead humanity into this new era? Could he protect it from those who would misuse its power? But as Kayleith spoke, he felt something shift within him, a sense of clarity, a growing understanding of what he needed to do. I'm ready, he said, his voice steady. Kayleith gave him a small, encouraging smile. Then we must act quickly. With a motion from Kayleith, the symbols on the walls of the dome began to glow brighter. The energy field intensified, reaching out toward the incoming pirate ships. Elias felt the power flow through him, as though he were a conduit for the singularity itself. It was overwhelming, but it wasn't painful. Instead, it felt like something deep inside him was being awakened, like a part of him that had always been there, waiting to be discovered. The pirate ships, now within range of the dome, launched their weapons. Lasers and energy blasts streaked toward the shield, but the moment they made contact they simply dissipated, absorbed by the dome's protective barrier. The pirates had no idea what they were up against. Elias reached out, focusing his mind on the singularity's power. He felt the energy flow through him like a current, and as he concentrated, he directed it outward. The dome responded instantly, and beams of light shot from the ground, striking the pirate ships with precision. The ships rocked under the force of the strikes, their shields flickering and weakening. Elias could see the panic in the eyes of the pirates. They weren't prepared for this. They hadn't counted on someone controlling the singularity's power. "They're retreating," Kalith said, her voice tinged with surprise. They didn't expect this level of resistance. Elias didn't lower his guard. He knew the pirates were cunning. They wouldn't retreat forever. He had to be ready for whatever came next. As the energy beams continued to strike the pirate ships, Elias felt something strange. A pull, a shift in the flow of energy. Something was changing. He turned to Kalith, his expression alarmed. "What's happening? Why does it feel different?" Kalith's face was filled with concern. "The singularity is reacting to the conflict. It is awakening, yes, but it is also testing you, Elias. It will push you to your limits, forcing you to make choices. You must be careful not to let it consume you." Elias felt the weight of her words. The singularity wasn't just a tool to be used. It was a force in its own right, with its own will and power. And right now, that power was pushing him to the edge, testing him in ways he couldn't fully understand. He focused harder, trying to keep control of the energy. The beams of light that were striking the pirate ships intensified, but so did the pressure inside him. He could feel the energy coursing through his veins, as though the very essence of the singularity was trying to take over his body and mind. "Elias," Kalith said urgently, "you must stay grounded. You must remember why you're doing this. It's not just about fighting, it's about protecting, about leading humanity toward something better." Her words broke through the overwhelming energy, and Elias took a deep breath, centering himself. He wasn't just a soldier, he wasn't just fighting for survival. He was fighting for the future of humanity, a future that could be shaped by the choices he made now. With renewed focus, Elias released the energy, directing it with purpose. The beams from the dome's core became more controlled, more precise. The pirate ships, now damaged and retreating, began to fall back. They knew they were no match for the power of the singularity. As the pirates withdrew, Elias felt the energy inside him begin to subside. The pressure that had been building in his chest eased, and the overwhelming sense of power that had threatened to consume him slowly faded. Kalith stepped forward, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You did it, Elias. You controlled the singularity, not as a weapon, but as a force of protection." Elias nodded, still catching his breath. "But it's not over, is it?" Kalith shook her head. "No, Elias. This is just the beginning. The singularity has been awakened, and now humanity must choose how to use it. You are the key, and the path ahead is uncertain. But with the power of the singularity at your side, humanity has a chance." Elias looked out toward the stars. The threat of the pirates had passed, but the future remained uncertain. He had taken the first step, but the road ahead was long. He had to lead humanity into the new age, not with power, but with wisdom. It was a responsibility he could no longer ignore. And as he stood there, with the singularity's power at his fingertips, he knew that the choice was his and humanity's to make. The battle with the pirates had been fierce, but it was over, for now. Elias stood at the heart of the dome, his eyes focused on the energy flows that still danced through the air, as if the very atmosphere around him was charged with potential. The singularity's power was still fresh in his mind, its intensity like a fire burning inside him. But now, after the chaos had calmed, a new feeling settled in. It wasn't fear. It was something deeper, something he hadn't fully understood until now. The singularity had changed him. Calith had been right. It wasn't just about controlling the power, it was about knowing how to guide it, how to use it wisely. Elias knew that the future of humanity depended on what he chose to do next. But what path should he take? Calith stood beside him, her face as calm and peaceful as ever. She had watched him unlock the power of the singularity, had seen him struggle with it and then come to terms with its overwhelming presence. There was pride in her eyes now, but also concern. "The pirates will be back," Elias said, his voice steady but filled with a quiet weight. "And the fleet, they'll want to know what happened here. How do I explain this?" Calith didn't answer immediately. Instead, she walked to the center of the dome and placed her hand on the smooth stone surface. The walls seemed to ripple, as if responding to her touch, and the faintest glow filled the air. The symbols on the walls shifted, like a language being spoken by the very stone itself. Elias could feel it. There was something ancient and wise in those markings, as though they held the answers to questions he hadn't even asked yet. "This place, this singularity," Calith said softly, turning back to him. "It holds more than power. It holds knowledge. Knowledge that could change everything." Elias followed her gaze. The walls of the dome were filled with endless patterns, each one a piece of the puzzle that was humanity's future. "What kind of knowledge?" he asked, his voice filled with curiosity. "Not just the history of the singularity," Calith replied, "but the potential of your people, the way forward. Humanity was never meant to stay on Earth. You were meant to explore, to build, and to rise beyond your own limitations. But it's not enough just to have the power. You must have the wisdom to use it." Elias felt a deep weight settle in his chest. "I don't know if I'm ready for that kind of responsibility." Calith's eyes softened, and for the first time, Elias saw something like vulnerability in her gaze. "No one is ever truly ready for the weight of the world, Elias, but you're not alone. And the path forward isn't just about having all the answers, it's about choosing, and then learning as you go." He took a deep breath, trying to calm the swirling thoughts in his mind. "I understand, but I can't do this alone." "You don't have to," Calith said, her voice steady. "You have your people. Humanity is not just a single individual. It is a collective, and right now you are the one who must lead them. But they will follow you if they believe in your vision." Elias turned away from her, looking up at the sky through the dome's transparent ceiling. The stars twinkled like a distant promise, and for a moment he allowed himself to dream of what could be. A future where humanity was no longer divided by borders and conflicts, but united as explorers of the stars. It was a vision he hadn't dared to imagine before, but now it seemed possible. "The fleet," Elias said, almost to himself. "They'll come looking for me. They'll want to know why I didn't report in. How do I explain all of this?" Calith stepped beside him, her gaze following his. "You tell them the truth. The singularity has awakened, Elias. They cannot ignore it, and neither can you. The knowledge and power it holds is too important to keep hidden. But you must decide how much you share with them. The fleet may not understand. They may fear what they cannot control." Elias nodded slowly. He knew she was right. The fleet wouldn't be ready for the truth. They would see the singularity as a weapon, something to harness and control, not something to protect and guide. But he had to try. He had to give humanity the chance to choose, to rise up and take its place in the stars. "I'll need time," Elias said, his voice quiet but determined. "Time to figure out what comes next. I can't just lead without understanding everything first." "Then take the time you need," Calith said gently. "The singularity will wait. It always does. But remember this, the future is shaped by the choices you make today." Elias turned to face her, a sense of resolve building within him. I won't make those choices alone. I'll need help, and I'll need to trust in the people I lead." Calith smiled, a look of approval in her eyes. "That's the first step, Elias. Trust. It's the foundation of leadership, and it's the only way humanity will move forward." Suddenly, a low hum filled the dome, and a flickering light caught their attention. Elias looked up to see a new set of symbols appearing on the wall, ones he hadn't seen before. They pulsed with energy, and the words they spelled out were clear. "The child of Earth has returned. The gate opens. The path forward begins." Elias felt a shiver run down his spine. This was it. The gate was opening. The journey had begun, and the path ahead was unclear, but the road was open. He had chosen to take the first step. Now, there was no turning back. With a steady breath, Elias turned to Calith. "I'm ready." Calith nodded, her face filled with quiet pride. "Then, let's open the gate, Elias. Let's show humanity what's possible." Together, they stepped forward. The future of humanity awaited. Elias stood on the bridge of the Nighthawk, staring out into the vast expanse of space. The stars stretched out before him, a canvas of possibilities. The decision he had made to open the gate to the singularity had changed everything. He could feel it in the air, in the very hum of the ship's systems. The future of humanity was no longer just an idea. It was real, and it was in his hands. Beside him, Calith watched the stars as well, her gaze distant, almost wistful. She had been with him through everything: the crash, the awakening of the singularity, the battle with the pirates, and now she was here, standing by his side as humanity's future was rewritten. She had always been a guide, a guardian, but now she, too, was part of the new world they were about to create. "Do you ever wonder what it will be like?" Elias asked her quietly, his voice soft with thought. "When we get back to Earth, and everything changes?" Calith turned to him, her eyes filled with a quiet understanding. "Every new beginning feels uncertain, Elias, but it's the only way forward. The old world, Earth as you know it, is gone, but the new one is waiting, shaped by the choices you make." Elias nodded. The weight of her words pressed down on him. Humanity had always been at a crossroads, but now they stood at the edge of something truly vast. The singularity had opened the way, offering knowledge and power unlike anything the world had ever seen. But that power came with responsibility. They could build a better future, or they could repeat the mistakes of the past. He turned to Calith, his face filled with determination. "I'm ready to lead, Calith. But I can't do it alone. I need the people of Earth to understand. They need to be a part of this." She smiled, her expression filled with quiet pride. "You will not be alone, Elias. Your people are ready. They've always been ready. It's time for them to rise." As if on cue, a soft beep echoed through the ship. The communications panel flickered to life, displaying a message from Earth's fleet. Elias's heart skipped a beat. This was it, the moment when everything would change. "Commander Ward," the voice on the other end said, crackling with static but still clear. "This is Admiral Greer of the United Earth Fleet. We've received your distress signal, and we've located your ship. Prepare for retrieval." Elias took a deep breath. This was the mom Elias felt a surge of uncertainty. The fleet was coming, yes, but they were still in the dark about the truth. He wasn't sure how they would react to the singularity, to the power he had unleashed. They might be afraid of it. They might even try to destroy it. But he couldn't. Back down. Not now. He had made his choice, and the future of humanity depended on the next step. If the fleet could not accept the singularity's knowledge, then it would be up to him and those who believed in the vision he had for the future. "To lead the way, I'll be ready," Elias said, his voice firm. "But I need you to trust me, Admiral. The path forward isn't about control. It's about unity. The singularity offers humanity a chance to rise above its old ways. We cannot let fear dictate our choices." There was a long pause, and then the voice of Admiral Greer came back, softer this time. "Understood, Commander. We will await your instructions." Elias nodded and turned off the communication. He looked out at the stars again, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on him. The fleet was on its way, but this was just the beginning. There would be challenges, there would be doubts, but Elias was ready to face them. He had chosen the path of leadership, and now he would walk it, no matter how uncertain it seemed. Kayleith placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch warm and reassuring. "The future is in your hands, Elias, and the future of humanity will not be decided by fear, but by the courage to step forward, to choose unity over division." Elias looked at her, his heart filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Kayleith. You've helped me see that humanity's true strength lies not in power, but in our ability to learn and grow together." The stars outside the ship seemed to shine brighter, as if echoing the promise of what was to come. Elias wasn't just returning to Earth. He was returning to a new world, a world that would no longer be bound by its past mistakes, a world where humanity could rise above its limitations and embrace its place among the stars. The Nighthawk slowly began to move, its engines firing up with a steady hum. Elias took one last look at the moon they had just left behind, at the dome that had revealed the truth about humanity's past and future. The gate had opened. The first step had been taken, and now there was no turning back.